Hey folks, Steve here with another all green alike video. I am struggling with how I've titled this series because it is the all green alike module within Stonewall Jackson's Way 2 as part of the GCACW series, and that's a mouthful. So I will I will refer to this as the all green alike module to make it distinct from the times I will hit the Stonewall Jackson's Way modules in the future. Um, we're going to get started here, and I want to talk quickly about what I think the United States, needs to do with its first activation. The whole title of the scenario is Across the Potomac, and it is going to be important to get across the Potomac. I don't know, how about that? But the questions about where we're going to do that and how we're going to do that are all kind of important. So, in principle, here, all the major crossings that we have, whether we're talking down here at Shepherdstown or right here in 1910, uh, what will be for Falling Waters, and then this hex here is that all of these locations are functionally uh, fords. So when we look at the terrain effects chart, a ford at the top of your screen, no effect on movement, and then during a rain turn, it's prohibited. And if we don't get across it, then it's going to give a defender combat modifier. So getting across the river and just starting to make headway there is going to be important. So we need to cross. You might say, well, why don't we just cross right here? It's right here. Well, we do want to do that. But we can also put the rebels off balance by trying to cross in multiple places and force them to further divide their own forces against ideally our numerically superior forces. So crossing here, obviously, getting into this space is going to be good. I would also like to be able to come down this way. So not a big deal to go, functionally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 to get over here. If we rolled really well, or if we eventually roll well enough to get down there, we'll want to do that. This is kind of way out of the way. I mean, you look at it and go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 to get to Shepherdstown. That's much further away. Not that we can't send a brigade or something down there or headed that direction. So we need to think through how we want to operate here. Where does it make sense to advance? I definitely want to deprioritize Shepherdstown, at least to start, because it's going to be a lot easier to get over there by coming through here and just going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, snaking around further down. But that's what I need to do. I would like to do it quickly. If we don't make use of this first initiative, what could happen is that the rebels get initiative after initiative after initiative, and it may be a while before we can move again and try to get across the river. Now, Patterson can always activate a couple of units, but he's got Cadwalader and who's that? Keim here that are the division leaders within his force, and each essentially have 3 brigades that would operate with them. So I kind of have to decide which units are going to go where. I have a thought to send Keim down this way. I don't know what the historical decision was here. They're really good game as history notes in the module, but they don't. It's not down to this granularity level, I don't think, of describing exactly where they went. So I kind of have to decide on my own here. So maybe I send Keim's division down here to this crossing. Then Patterson stays with Cadwalader and comes down this way. And then when we get a chance to activate some of the U.S. cavalry, maybe we'll send them out on a flank to protect our right flank to make sure that the rebels don't get sneaky and try to come up through here into Hagerstown. Because we don't want to lose Hagerstown. One of our brigades that's in the 1st Potomac Division, um, isn't going to be able to, or actually, I should double check that. Okay, yeah, they're part of the 1st. The 13th Pennsylvania Brigade can't move until turn 3. So they're going to hold Williamsport for us effectively. So we can definitely advance with 3 brigades on 2 different axes of advance if we want to. We should be able to keep our forces in relative concentration at first, so we can just start making progress and pushing into the enemy territory. And then again, at some point in my activations, I'll want to get the U.S. Cavalry, which is also in this stack, somewhere else, either supporting, catching Stuart, or trying to protect this flank down here. Worst case scenario, I could always activate this regiment and have them do something. So a couple different options there. If I feel like we need it, the main thing is we need to start taking some of these hexes and kind of having multiple ways to make progress on the map. So with that in mind, I have to make a decision on which leader I'm going to activate, because I do think I need to do this as a leader activation. And this is going to be tricky. I think what I can do is, if I use Patterson, I can pick 2 units in the stack within the whole district force. So I could pick 1st Potomac Division Brigade, and then I could pick a 2nd Division Brigade, activate those as the 2 units. One seizes control of the river crossing here, and then the other can be making progress. And then as I activate in the future, I can have the division leaders move the rest of the forces out and across. So I think that's what I want to do. That is, I think, what I want to do. Maybe that's not optimal. And so this is where, if there are some GCACW experts watching and want to impart what they would do instead, this is the nice thing, is this is a short, small scenario. If I screw it up very badly or I have suboptimal play, that concerns me less really than if I totally bungle a big campaign by doing something silly. So the nice thing about a leader activation is that the die rolls are a bit better ultimately. So we do have an advantage of that. And let's see. So we have a Union infantry leader. We have our district leader, who is both a, can be used as a, a district leader is not quite an army leader and not just a corps leader. Is one way to look at that. So we have a die roll, and then we get to add 1. But in all green alike, this is another one of those special rules. You actually don't get the die roll +1, but our minimum movement allowance is 2. So I'm going to roll a die, and this is what's going to determine our movement. And I get a 2. Geez Louise. Okay. So there are some markers that we can put on the units to denote that they are being activated with a leader activation. I don't really think I need to do that right now. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a unit, and I'm going to take Catawalder as well. I'm going to move these guys 1, which turns this to Union control, and then 2, and then what I'm going to do is need to think about this for a second. Do I take Kine or not? We're gonna have Negley go 1-2. And so, having completed that, I am going to have to add fatigue markers to those guys. What I need to make sure of is, could they have moved? let me take care of that. Okay, what I've decided to do is leave Patterson behind for the moment. Um, but we had sent, uh, these guys here, one of Kimes' brigades here. And then you see I've marked these with the fatigue marker. I believe ordinarily you put them on the bottom or underneath the unit, but I want to make sure you guys see that I have placed these. So fatigue one, they've activated once each. So as I go to put these guys underneath, keep that in mind. I have to double check what's the best way for this to be represented. The one challenge I do see with this system a little bit, and you can handle it a number of ways, is some of these stacks could get a little bit too high because you're just putting a lot of markers down. I have seen people make some kind of like sheet, so like every unit in a campaign is on that sheet and has a place for you to put its fatigue and its manpower, so you're only having to move the unit around. I might want to do that eventually. For now, I'm okay not doing it, but if it becomes a bit too much, then I might want to do that. I think with Vassal, it's a lot easier because you can represent all these things in a digital number overlaid over the counter and various things like that, but the housekeeping could be a bit tough. Okay, with that first Union activation out of the way, not nearly what I wanted to get done, by the way, because I rolled a 2 for that movement. I'm already getting my fear. We're going to do an initiative roll. So this is going to determine who will move next. It could be that the Union goes again. That would be convenient to me. And in this case, the rebels win ties. So I'm going to roll. What I'm going to do off camera here, if it's red, that's rebel. If it's white, that's U.S. Okay, so the rebels do get initiative. And I'm going to have to think through my options here. One, I can start moving Johnston's folks up from Winchester. Or I could try to activate Jackson to do something. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At best, he could maybe come up and get one attack off. But I don't know that I would want him to do that. He may simply be better off screening while we get Johnston's people up. So I do think I'm going to have Johnston go and try to get him moving, because if they don't get up soon, they're going to be a problem. But they can only go to fatigue level 1, so I am actually maybe better off waiting to do Johnston, because nothing Johnston's going to do is going to affect the first turn, probably, no matter how fast they move. It won't be enough. Okay, I think what I've decided to do is to try to move Jackson. And what I would want to do with him is to block the U.S. advance. So I rolled movement, and of course I got a 5, which increases by 1, and all green alike to 6. So Jackson can move 6. And what I want to do is I want to use these roads and trails to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess the 6 is incidental, but get him moved up like so. I will have to get him a fatigue marker, but my thinking is to get him protecting the river crossing and make it harder to get across while Johnston comes up. Maybe that's not a good move. What I'm hoping is that the rebels can go again, and then Stuart can come up and do the cavalry retreat thing where you actually affect the enemy's movement by kind of harassing them and then retreating. And I think I could try to use Stuart to do that, so that while the Union is across the Potomac there, they're not going to be able to make a huge amount of ground before Johnston is coming up from the south. So let me get this fatigue marker going, because what I'm doing is I'm punching and I'm rounding corners as I play. So we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and roll initiative right now to see who goes what. And it is the rebels again, so we're probably going to see the cavalry moved up at this point. And what I'll probably end up doing with Johnston is doing a forced march to try to get him as far north as we can and hope for a high die roll. So let me take care of this next movement here. Okay, so Jackson got his fatigue marker. We've moved Stewart up. Stewart had a bunch of movement points. We didn't need that many, but we did adjust ourselves forward so that we can immediately slow down the U.S. forces as they try to move forward. So he has a fatigue marker. He's not required to attack or anything. I don't believe he just has to stop when entering that Zoc, and he is projecting his own Zoc around here. So we're going to try to hold that spot while Johnston comes back up, at least is the thinking. So off to a not great start for the U.S. Was hoping to get more across the river and get across down here, but that bad die roll we just didn't get what we needed ultimately. So we'll do initiative roll again. And the rebels get it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and activate Johnston. And I need to think about how this is going to work because, at least in this scenario, okay, any infantry and up to 3 units, and he has 3 units with him. So Johnston is going to activate, and he's going to need to roll high to make a big difference here. Boy, what do we want to do? So yeah, we'll go ahead and I need to think about this. What's going to happen with Johnston is that despite his movement, what's going to end up occurring is there's going to be a little bit of a traffic jam due to each unit moving individually. So while Johnston has a bunch of stuff stacked up, we're going to have to keep that in mind. So we'll go ahead. We know which units we're activating. We're going to do the leader rolling. Ooh. Oh gosh. I made one small mistake. So let's see if I can fix this. 1 second, guys. Okay, my mistake was that when we activated Jackson, he should not have gotten a +1 to his movement. That's only for a leader activation, but he still had enough movement points to get him where we put him, so it didn't really affect the game. Anyway, we're going to do our activation now with Johnston, so we're going to roll the die, and we've got a 5 + 1. We do get the +1 for this as a 6. Which is fine. Let's see. I think we're going to want to do a force march. I think that's what we want to do. So each of Johnson's units is going to force march. That will enable us to get a lot further. There are costs to it. And make no mistake. And since I'm going to be applying a bunch of fatigue markers, and I'm going to have to watch out for the traffic jam rules, where you can't moving through a friendly unit actually costs movement points, so you kind of have to send them down the line a little bit. It's going to do some awkward movements. I'm going to handle that off camera and to show the aftermath of Johnston's movement. I will roll for the force march. So we're going to roll a die and subtract 1, and we're going to add that to the movement. So we currently have 6, and we'll see what else we get here. We got a 5 minus 1 is a 4. So we're going to end up with 10 movement points total for these units, and then I'll handle that. Okay, here we are after Johnston's activation. So they had started in Winchester and they moved up to here. What's important to point out, and I sort of misstated it before the camera stopped there, is that each unit individually, if they're going to force march, gets its own force march die roll. So it wasn't one for all of them, and they all had 10 movement points. There was a variation here where ultimately each brigade, there was a brigade that got 10 movement points. There was a brigade that ended up with 8, and one that ended up with 11. But they were all close enough that they could kind of move as a set up this road, navigating different ways. And Patterson, or I'm sorry, Johnston, rather, geez, is still close enough in the command radius that he could activate them as a group again and continue to move. But the force march, so now all these guys are at fatigue level 1. They are all now disorganized because of the force march. And unfortunately for Bartow, he has actually taken uh, a manpower loss due to the forced march. He rolled a 6, and an unmodified die roll of 6 causes a manpower loss for forced march. Now, the actual combat power of that unit on its disorganized side is the same. So functionally, this turn didn't really affect its combat ability, but when these guys are reorganized, he'll be a little bit weaker than he otherwise would. So we took a risk here to try to move them forward, and now these guys are done for the turn. They can only go up to fatigue level 1. So that's it for them. And it's going to get to the point now where, depending on who wins initiative here, like the Confederates, the rebels are in about as good a position as they can be until Johnston can keep moving north. So they may pass if they get to go again, but the U.S. forces absolutely do not want to pass. So we're not going to see the end of the turn. They really need to start making some headway. They haven't gotten a move at all for a while. So we'll do the initiative roll here, and the Union does actually win. So now we need to think about what are we going to do here. I could definitely see a need to make some headway. Well, I don't know. I think we got to activate some of our other units, and we need to try to get um, some more forces through and across the terrain that we have. So what I may do is pick Kime and have his set of brigades all move and try to move down this way. That may be the best thing that we can hope to do at this point. Um, Alternatively, I could still see a need for uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about this, guys. I'm gonna do a clip here, cut here, and I'll have figured out what I want to do. Because this is tough. I think we need to push against the cavalry and just start getting a clear number of units over here, and then we could maybe outflank Jackson. He's really just trying to hold this side of the river um, across the tributary here, but um, we might as well as the Union be trying to push where we can towards Martinsburg. That's sort of the next thing is, even if we take any of these other red victory places, our victory points don't change. By having this one, that's as good as it gets until we get to this line. So we might as well push through as we can, I guess. Okay, I think we're going to go with the, if you do not succeed, try again. And we will have Patterson activate a brigade from each division, and go for the die roll here. I am wary of this, and maybe we're gonna fail again, but I need to get something going here so that we can make some headway. So we're gonna try, we're gonna try. Actually, wait. I need to think about this for a second. Why don't I? Nope, we're going to do with what I said. We're going to try. I want to advance on both axes for right now because At this point, I don't expect the rebels to do much. I think they're going to have to pass. So we might as well take our time to get some activations going and work out a better situation. So we'll do that. We'll roll a die. We're not going to add anything to it. One brigade from each division out of the stack in Williamsport. And we get a 4, which is not terrible. What we'll probably end up doing here is going 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll move Thomas's brigade out of this stack here. And we're going to circle out around and go, 1, 2, 3. And then force Stuart to retreat. So we'll adjudicate that for the first time, and how the cavalry retreat is going to work. I have not done this before. And of course, I can't find I can't find the thing that I'm looking for to do it. It's not hard, or so I'm told. Okay, so we would have moved 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3. We would have a movement point left. We could call an attack there, and then in response, we can do the retreat before combat effectively. And I guess I'm going to have to hold on a second and make sure I find the rules and execute it properly, but there's going to be some die rolling involved. Okay, so the cavalry retreat would be occurring when the Thomas enters this hex. So he enters that hex, and we're going to roll a die. And I rolled a 2. And there may be modifiers, so I'm going to double check that. I don't believe terrain would affect anything. I don't think any. Okay, a very small force. The only cavalry unit in the hex has a combat value of 1/2, which it does. So we'd have a -4. Let's see, we didn't roll a 1, so we don't have to reduce our strength. And then it can must retreat 4 to 6 hexes. So what's going to happen here is they are going to gain a fatigue marker, but we're going to retreat, 4 to 6 hexes. One, 2, 3, 4, and they go up to fatigue 2. And then because we did that, so we rolled a 2, divided in half is a 1. So Thomas's movement would have been reduced by 1. He'd have to stop moving in that hex where he first entered that initiated the retreat. And then, of course, Thomas himself is going to get, as I clip off camera here, a fatigue marker for this unit. And so I don't think that changed a whole lot. And in fact, I don't know. I think it's fine what occurred. That's roughly what we needed to have occur, and that's what occurred. Okay, so everyone moved there, and now we're going to go back to initiative, and this time the Union wins again, which now leads me to want to activate. Um, well, I guess I need to think about this, because what I'd maybe want to do is what I could do is I could send Keim's forces. These guys start heading towards Sharpsburg, and then have a holding unit across the river against Jackson and kind of force the situation, and then continue to move with the First Division down and around. So I think we've got some decent options here, um, and we're going to start to do that. I think so. What I'll do, we'll go ahead and say we're going to use time for a leader activation, and what unfortunately that's going to probably mean I need a well. I'll put it this way. I will. I'm going to aim to use the Second Potomac Division that Keim leads and try to make a maneuver this way, and we'll see kind of what our potential is to get there. I need to look at the leader transfer rule really quick and see if I can improve the situation at all, because Abercrombie is actually outside of command range, so I could only activate the last brigade of that division in this stack and then that unit, which that might be fine, but I'd rather figure out a way to activate all three if I can. Okay, I tried, guys. I got 2 movement points to work with. So continuing to maneuver south, just going at a snail's pace, and you can see we're still trying to make progress, but some of these guys are starting to get to fatigue too. I do want to avoid anybody becoming extended march and going to exhaustion. So things are going to kind of slow down. I guess I'd rather have the rebels make themselves exhausted and disorganized and maintain good order, so that we can do better in the actual fighting that would occur, and then we can take territory. So I don't know how to look at that. Boy, that sounds awfully U.S. Army-ish for this time period, but we'll see. So going to initiative again. Union wins again. Okay, well we're getting somewhere, folks. Um, Here, I think we'll go ahead and have um, we'll have the first Potomac go as a leader activation with Cadwallader, and we'll give it a roll, and we get a 3, which just is not really that great, to be quite honest. So we'll go ahead and we'll get rid of this force marker because I don't think that that's necessarily needed anymore. And we'll end up moving this guy with Patterson in just a second. I want to move these guys first and have him go basically 1, 2, 3. And we'll have him go 1, 2, 3. We'll taking control of this hex. Not that it matters a whole lot, but we'll do that. And then this guy is moving for the first time, going 1, 2, 3. And I need to get him a fatigue marker. So, it's kind of silly that indeed the rebels not only get a better die roll for movement in the system period, but that the Union is just rolling total garbage, is kind of a challenge, but starting to make some progress here, which is not nothing. And so he's at fatigue 2, should be at fatigue 2. Yeah. All right, back to initiative. Here, the rebels get it, and I let's see. Can we entrench as Jackson? Would we even want to entrench at this point? Um, because if we get outflanked here, then it really doesn't do us much good. Um, and he feels so alone at the moment. Um, he could actually very easily get put into a really bad spot. So um, I almost want to pull Jackson back, but entrenching could be valuable here. Oh, we can't entrench because it's 1861. Okay, so is there a move that we would want to take? I think what we would want to do. Well, I think Stewart's well positioned here, so I don't know that we want to adjust him any further at this point. But our real problem is we need to get Johnston up as the rebels. Um, Jackson has to hold here somehow, so I'm willing to let Jackson sit there, but this is kind of a precarious position. So I guess we'll have the rebels pass, and it goes over to the Union, the U.S. to make a decision here, and I think we'll go ahead and take our activation for our cavalry and do that. And so um, we'll roll two dice, and we get a 10, which is that's pretty good. So we're gonna take our guy here and just send him out around on a flank. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, the reason why we're doing this is not necessarily to take control, because a cavalry unit can't take control of these hexes. But we're doing this so that we are protecting our own flank, and if we can create a flank position down the road, um, Thomas being able to do that might be very valuable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. Okay. So that wasn't so bad. Back to initiative. Rebels get it again. Do they want to do anything? I think they continue to pass. There's not much we can do right now that's going to significantly change what happens here. And so the Union's going to go again. And it's all at this point. It's all about how far does the Union want to go. Um, to make headway here. The other thing we could do is we could be looking at what to do with this unit up in Hagerstown, but I kind of want to just leave him there so that there's no super duper sneaky things that could happen to us. So it's really a question of how far do we want to push these guys on the first day. So I need to think through that as well. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and have our cavalry go again as the Union, and we'll roll to move. What I want to do is now start to penetrate the holdings here and put these guys in bad shape. Supply really isn't a factor in the basic game, so I can send these guys a roaming, and not really a big deal. So two dice, and we get 7. So it would be basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is enough to be a threat. Again, we there's no point in trying to come down here because we can't take control. But now there's something happening to where Jackson is going to be maybe behind enemy lines here very shortly. So now uh, back to initiative, and the Union wins again. Now this is the case where if the rebels had won initiative, they might be thinking about pulling Jackson back or doing something with him. But now the Union can go again, and so this sort of makes this kind of makes that situation interesting. We're like, well, let's say I make it Um, I make it Thomas again. Do I move him up right here? And now uh, Jackson has some potential to be flanked in a couple of spots. That could be a pretty significant deal here. So I need to think through what I want to do with that. If we send him to an extended march, are there going to be any major penalties here? So we'd have to roll in the extended march table. And let's see, we are a disorganized. Yeah, we're disorganized. Yeah, that has a strong potential. You think about this. There is a chance. Okay, it's an early war cavalry. So I think we're reasonably safe to try it. So we're going to go ahead and move again with our cavalry. We get 6 movement points. That's more than enough to do what I want to do. But then we have our extended movement because this is going to be going to a fatigue level 3. And I'll place the fatigue marker here in just a second. There is a nice reminder here. Fatigue 3 means extended march. Where we need to roll on the table. So we're going to roll a die. Basically, based on the way I'm reading this, just to show you, they are disorganized, and the manpower is less than 5. The modifiers, none of these apply because we're going to fatigue level 3, so none of those apply. That doesn't apply. Plus 0, so it doesn't really change anything. So all of those modifiers, basically, we would only lose a step if I rolled a 6 and I rolled a 1, so we're okay there. So I'm going to get this fatigue marker so that the idea being we're going to move up to here, and I'll replace the fatigue marker in a second. and now Jackson's going to have some issues because, well, let's see how many strength. So it's not that great for the United States here because Thomas's strength is not so good. It is less than 1/4 of Jackson's strength, which means we're actually not going to get a flank bonus. But what I want to be able to do is force Jackson to retreat either into an enemy hex or into a Zoc and cause additional losses. So we're just kind of making the situation inconvenient. And so far, we haven't lost anything for it. So that's going to complete that action. Now the Union really wants to go again, and the rebels get to go. So I think Jackson's got to decide if it's worth getting pinched in the river lines here or to extricate himself. And he's going to be able to do that pretty easily. But the cavalry won't make it easy for him to do that. So he's got to decide which way he wants to go. He's kind of got a couple options. He can go here, here, and then try to work his way around this way. Or he can try to, push Thomas away and continue to try to hold some kind of flank here. And I'm not sure which is better at this point, but I'll think through that and we'll execute it. Okay, so Jackson rolled very well for movement, and Thomas actually rolled really well for cavalry retreat. But it all kind of worked out that because the cavalry was very small, we only reduced Jackson's movement by 2 movement points. Thomas retreated, is now going to be exhausted way over here, and Jackson's pulling back. at this point. So doesn't want to uh, have to hold here anymore. Or actually, come to think of it, I think he would have just, after rebuffing the cavalry out, I think maybe he would have held here because Thomas can't activate again this turn. Um, and he can continue to hold that river line. The problem would be if we went into next turn and the Union got to go first, then they could again try to repeat this same situation. So it is a question of like, do we try to pull back or not? Maybe we just do for now and figure out what else we can do. It sucks to give up the river line. I don't like that, but we are creating a situation where it'd be really hard to hold it, and I don't want to get a state where Jackson's force gets eliminated, that because then the force ratio on the map, or a situation where Jackson just gets totally knocked out of the fight, because then the numerical superiority against Johnston's brigades becomes even easier to exploit as the Union. So Jackson's going to pull back for the moment. Um, so now we'll go back to initiative, and Union gets to go. I think we'll have Keim activate, and we get 2 movement points. Jeez Louise. Um, do we try to force march? I think we're okay to not do that. Um, so we'll do 1, 2. God, that's so frustrating. And we'll do, let's see, what do we, maybe we just move to here. It's frustrating. I would rather have crossed the river. We could have done that with Negley here, and maybe we should, but it's going to cause extended march, and I was hoping to avoid that. And it doesn't really change the victory situation for doing it. And we've got a different way to get these folks over the river. They can go west now. So I think that's fine. We'll go back to initiative, and it's a tie, so it is going to go to the rebels. Boy, we're still kind of stuck in a weird spot. Um, and you can always do a cavalry retreat even at fatigue 4, apparently. Which means that like it doesn't make sense for Jackson to go after Thomas. So maybe the best thing we can do is have, well, and Jackson's at 2 fatigue. Do we extend March Jackson? I don't think we want to do that either. So I think we pass. We let it go to the Union. And for this one, again, it's a question like, do we want to start to exhaust our guys? I don't know that it makes sense to do that. So I think we'll actually do a leader activation with the 1st Division. And wow, we actually rolled a 6. So our guys can actually move around a good bit. So what we could do, unfortunately, some of our guys are still pretty fatigued, which is a real damn shame. Go. Oh man. All right. I need to think about this for a second, guys. I do want to avoid pushing people to exhaustion because it's just going to make it harder to operate when the fighting begins. And I don't know. This is where my unfamiliarity with the system is going to affect my judgment on should I just be pushing these guys or not. The fact that we are not all the way across the river um, by the end of the day is frustrating. But maybe what we would just end up doing here is moving this Patterson stack up and go um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just get them moved up. Due to the movement through occupied hexes, it's not like I can go bum rushing through uh, the stack there that has our leader, our division leader in it, because he's got a strength of 4, which means that it is, um, I guess that's rolling terrain. It's gonna be +1 movement, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Stewart maybe is going to try to retreat away. So maybe we do that. They got 6 movement points. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 2 movement points left. And then Stewart would retreat. And I drop my dice. So let's see, that's, yeah, so he would stop moving and then these guys fall back 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll have to get him another fatigue marker. So not quite. Well, I guess the cavalry's doing its job. If it wasn't able to stay alive, if it rolled a 1 and became eliminated, that would be pretty problematic, probably. So what, 1, 2, yeah. So, yeah, and then basically all these Union units are fatigued too. So it's a question of like, do we want to move any further or not at this point, and incur extended marches? The reason why I'm so cautious of doing that is that when we look at the recovery, what will happen is um, units that are at fatigue 3 or 4 are flipped to their exhausted side, and then it's hard to get them out of an exhausted state because then you extend march, again at fatigue level 2. So I don't want to push these guys because fatigue is going to go through the roof when they start fighting anyway, and I'd rather them be in good order when we fight rather than not. Right now, the victory calculation is in the Union's favor, basically. We do control a victory hex in the band at least once. We have 2 victory points. Nobody's really lost any manpower from fighting yet because we haven't had a good proper battle. It's all at most cavalry harassment as the Union moves forward. So I think we're good there. So now the question is, what happens when we do initiative? It's Union again. Is there any point to trying to get across at this point? I don't think we want to do anything there. So I think what we'll end up doing is passing, and I think the rebels have no choice but to pass at this point. They can't operate with much more, and I definitely don't want Jackson to be exhausted either, for that matter. So we'll call that the action phase, and we haven't had any real fights yet, but that's okay. I think we're in good shape from that perspective. So with the activation segments done, then we would look at the recovery phase. So eligible units can potentially entrench. I don't think anyone's going to end up doing that. And we're going to recover some fatigue, disorganization, exhaustion, and so on. And then we'll move the turn track forward to the second day. So let me double check how the recovery segment will work, and we'll run through that for the video. Okay, so with the recovery segment, we're going to check a few things. Units at fatigue level 0 can entrench. There's really only one force on the map that can do that, or at least in my mind, can or would do that, and that's this unit in Hagerstown. It is at fatigue level 0, and we can build an abatis because it's 1861. And I don't think there's any other issues with me doing it, so I can just put an abatis marker up there. This kind of helps ensure that if somehow Stewart or some other force tries to like get around and disrupt control of Hagerstown for victory purposes, it's protected. I may need to pull that unit forward at some point, but for now, it's a freebie. I'll take it. Now, units at level 0 or 1 with a disorganized strength can fix themselves. Nobody's in that state really at this point. Units at fatigue level 3 or 4 are flipped to their exhausted reverse sides. So if we look at this, we see Thomas. He is not only disorganized, because cavalry always are, but he's at fatigue level 4. So he's going to get put on his exhausted side, which isn't great, but not a huge deal. Stewart is at fatigue level 3, and so has to do the same thing. Our cavalry is exhausted. Do we have any other 3s? I don't believe we do. Everybody else should be at 2 for what it matters. All units at fatigue level 1 or more lose 3 fatigue levels. And let's see. Okay. Now, to get rid of being disorganized, I should point out, so the units that are disorganized right now are the rebel forces with Johnston that are trying to force march up the town, or up the pike. Units at fatigue level 0 or 1 with disorganized strength markers have their strength markers flipped to their organized sides. Okay. So technically, yeah, that should occur now. So just really quickly want to show these guys, because they're at fatigue level 0, they become organized again before we do the step that I was in the process of saying. So those guys get into better shape, which is good. And then further along again, they all units at fatigue level 1 recover effectively. So we're going to take the fatigue off these units. It's getting crowded. I should be using my tweeters. And I'll just simply slide these guys away. So they're good. So Johnston's in good shape. Like the fact that they only did fatigue level 1 with an extended march, or I'm sorry, forced march, helps out. And then returning to everyone else, again, if you're at 1 or more, you lose 3. So if you're at 2, it just goes away. Whoops, I guess I need to leave that there. So he's good on fatigue. He's good on fatigue now, though, again, exhausted at this point. This goes to a 1, but again, is exhausted, so it's going to be very easy to kind of get out of gas. And then really the rest of the Union forces are all going to lose their fatigue as well and get cleared of that. A little bit of housekeeping here, which is not the most exciting part of the game, certainly. But that is how the game is played. All right, so we have cleared fatigue, and there's usually some other sub steps if you're playing the advanced game, but it's not relevant here. And now we just move on to the next turn. I have the track off camera, but we're going to go to the July 3rd turn, basically. And yes, and that's it. So we're at the end of turn one. What have we seen occur? Well, the Union's off to a slow start, slowly plodding along, but is now moving forward in earnest to get over the Potomac, and then from there it'll be the real fight out. Jackson nearly got his line of communication cut by Union cavalry, which is exciting, but it just didn't hold, and so if the initiatives had gone a different way, the Union might have actually tried to make an assault on Jackson's position and maybe really knocked him out of the fight, but we just didn't get it to happen. So no major fighting has actually occurred. It's really positioning, cavalry harassment, and screening the Union Army while Johnston attempts to get his men forward. So I would expect sometime here in the coming turn two for fighting to actually break out, because now it's going to be a fight to get in a position to take these hexes. If we did nothing else, if the armies refused to fight one another, I believe this would end up being a U.S. victory because they have at least some victory points. So there is an onus on the rebels to attack the Union position to ensure that they can inflict losses and prevent further territory taken or crossings taken, or again, positions south of the Potomac. So it'll make for an interesting turn. This one just very feeling out where folks can go to, what's our strategy of advance. I think we've got a pretty good handle on that, and we'll see what happens in the next turn. The critical thing being, here's a river crossing on this tributary. Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. So this river line, while certainly an important feature, there's a lot more crossings. So the rebels can't rely on it being a true like staller on the U.S. Brigades, because they can find another crossing on this minor river somewhere and continue to advance or operate. So, yeah. All right, guys. I think I'll call this a video because this one's already quite long. I don't think I'm going to do turns 2, 3, or 4 in quite the same level of detail, except for maybe when we get to our first combat and we really talk through how that operates. The CRT is a little weird to me, and I have to remind myself how it works every time I look at it. But we'll hit that and more in the next one. So thanks for watching. Hope this is enjoyable. If you have any pointers, because you are a GCACW expert, please feel free to share your thoughts down below. I would appreciate it because I'm kind of fighting blind a little bit here. Anyway, take care, guys. See you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.